What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're gonna be ranking the 8 mandatory poses, including the most muscular, of the Stingray Shawn Ray from worst to best. And we're gonna be considering the poses throughout the bodybuilder's whole career. So, if for example it happened that they were dominant in a mandatory in the first part of their career, but with time that they didn't look nearly as good in the pose, it's not gonna place so high. It's probably gonna place more in the middle in this video. Alright, let's get into it, but first a bit of a short introduction for Shawn Ray. He is a very aesthetic and complete bodybuilder from the 90s who was able to finish in the top 5 at the Olympia for 11, I believe, consecutive years, if you can believe that, although he never won the Sandow himself. Now let's start breaking down the individual poses. The weakest pose, in my opinion, for Shawn has to be the backlight spread. He never looked this good in this shot because he was usually getting dwarfed, not only in height but in width too. He's not the widest guy and he doesn't have enough detail, in my opinion, to compensate for that. It has to be said though that he has good detail in his lower body most of the time. His lower body is peeled to the bone. The second worst pose is the side chest pose. Not that strong either because his pecs have an odd shape in this pose. Shawn overall did not have enough mass to compete with other people on his level, and I don't think he was winning this pose against many competitors. His arm looks very sharp and good, and the midsection of course, but the chest and lower body doesn't look that impressive in my opinion. Next, in my opinion, coming in sixth place is the other side pose, the side triceps. I wouldn't exactly call it a weak pose, but I have to say the tricep is not Shawn's strongest body part, and even the rest of his body doesn't outright make you think this is amazing. Not that impressive in this pose. And some years he doesn't hit it to spec, so I'm dinging him for that as well. You can see it on the right. The normal execution on the left is better in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on Shawn's fifth best position, and this is the front lat spread. This is not a weak pose for Shawn. He does look impressive. His lats flare out pretty good, especially considering he's quite narrow. His pecs are asymmetrical, but still look decent and don't ruin the pose. And also, the abs look great, as always, with Shawn Ray. And the quads from the front, I mean, he wouldn't have beaten Dorian Yates, but for being smaller overall, Shawn looks really good in the front lat spread. And moving on to the latter half of the poses, we have the front double. Here again, Shawn is so aesthetic. Look at the mind-blowing vacuum, that's really good. The tiny waist and the arms are great seen from the front. I really like the V-taper, the flaring lats too. You can notice how low Shawn's lats insert. He has great overall flow in the pose and looks amazing. But in my opinion, he looks even a bit better in the most muscular. This has to be said. This was not a mandatory when he was competing, so he didn't need to look that good in it, but almost all bodybuilders still hit it in the 90s, so I decided to include it in this countdown because why not? Shawn mostly hit the hands clasp and hands on hip and the crab too, but I've seen other variations from him, so he was very versatile. Anyway, whatever version we're discussing, you can notice Angle is favoring his arms, which look really huge in this pose, and the delts look not bad, and the pecs and abs are looking great too. A strong pose for Shawn in my opinion. He looks much bigger in it than he actually was, and his skin looks super thin, so good stuff. Too bad they didn't score it in the 90s, right? And now we move on to the runner-up spot, and this is the rear double biceps. This pose for Shawn is, in my opinion, quite underappreciated because it can be counted among the best back double biceps ever. He's just packed with defined detail everywhere. If you ignore the size element in this pose, this might very well be the most impressive back double biceps ever. You can't argue this is just very proportioned and completely developed and so aesthetic. But that being said, I believe there is a pose that Shawn is the best in history in, and that is the ab and thigh. It makes sense because he's so aesthetic overall, and his midsection is probably unsurpassed to this day, especially in this era. Look at all the crazy details in the serratus and obliques, and the perfect six-pack to boot, or an eight-pack. It's even more impressive. Even the thighs don't lack too underdeveloped in this comparison. They have some nice feathering even. And what can I say about the V shape? The lats look great, and Shawn doesn't look narrow in this pose. He's perfect. He's literally perfect. What more do you want? Maybe a bit more size and better legs? Maybe, but these are minor details. He's just so good in the abdominals and thighs pose. So here, this pose rightfully tops the list. Alright guys, that's all the poses. What do you think about the order and the video overall? Let me know down in the comment section below, please. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some Shawn Ray videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.